The moment the doors of the Belle Mer hotel swung shut behind her, Lena Vance felt the cold, sharp edge of a lifetime of being invisible. She had heard the words, spoken not to her, but about her, as if she were a piece of furniture. Make sure she doesn't touch anything valuable. Just get her out of here. The voice was a low, dismissive hiss, belonging to the man who was supposed to be her partner. He had no idea. He had absolutely no idea who he was trying to eject from the building he claimed to own. He had no idea that the woman he was treating like a trespasser was the woman who held the deed to the entire block. This is a story about a woman who was told she was nothing, and the man who discovered, far too late, that he had just tried to throw the queen out of her own castle. If you are watching from anywhere in the world, drop a comment with your country's flag emoji and let me know where you're watching from. Subscribe so you don't miss tomorrow's story. It's one you'll want to tell your friends about. Because today, we are talking about Lena Vance, the woman who was underestimated for the very last time. Lena stood in the lobby of the Belle Mer, the place she had called home for the last 3 months. It was a short-term rental, a temporary haven while her contractor finished the renovations on her penthouse 3 blocks away. She had chosen the Belle Mer for its quiet, old-world elegance, a stark contrast to the glass and steel towers she owned a stake in. She was wearing her favorite work clothes, a simple, well-worn leather jacket over a soft cotton shirt and practical jeans. She had her laptop bag slung over her shoulder. She didn't look like a woman who could buy and sell the hotel 3 times over. She looked like a woman who was passing through. And that was exactly how her temporary landlord, a man named Julian Croft, saw her. "Miss Vance," he said, the name tasting like ash in his mouth. He was a tall man with a carefully sculpted beard and a suit that cost more than most people's rent. He had the air of a man who believed his presence was a gift to the world. "I'm going to need you to vacate the premises immediately. There's been a clerical error. Your booking is invalid." Lena didn't flinch. She had seen this look before. It was the look of a man who had just realized a woman he deemed beneath him was in his space, and he wanted her out. "My booking is paid in full, Mr. Croft. I have the confirmation number on my phone. I'm here for another 2 weeks." The booking was made by a third party, Julian said, his voice dripping with false authority. "It has been rescinded. The hotel is fully booked. There's been a mistake. You need to leave now." A small crowd was gathering. The concierge, a young man named David, looked like he wanted to disappear into the marble floor. The hotel manager, a woman in a sharp suit, was watching with a mix of horror and fascination. Lena could feel the weight of their stares. She could feel the familiar sting of being treated like a problem to be solved, not a person to be respected. "I'm not going anywhere," Lena said, her voice calm and steady. "I have a contract. You can't just kick me out because you feel like it. I can do whatever I want," Julian snapped, stepping closer. He lowered his voice, so only she could hear. "You're a nobody, Miss Vance. You're a tenant. You're a guest. You are nothing. Get your things and get out before I have security escort you. I don't care who you think you are. In this building, I am the law." Lena looked at him. She looked at his expensive suit, his carefully styled hair, the way his hands trembled slightly with the adrenaline of asserting power. She remembered a time when those words would have broken her. She remembered a time when she had been the one cleaning the floors of buildings like this, invisible and untouchable. But she was not that woman anymore. She had not been that woman for a very long time. "Mr. Croft," she said, her voice carrying a new weight, a quiet authority that made the air in the lobby shift. I think you should check your ownership documents. Specifically, the deed to this building. The one that was signed over to a holding company called Vance Holdings 3 weeks ago. Julian's smirk faltered. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the fact that you don't own this hotel anymore, Mr. Croft. You lost it. You lost it because you tried to cheat the wrong person. You lost it because you thought you were smarter than everyone else. And now you are standing in my lobby, trying to evict me. The silence in the lobby was deafening. Julian's face went pale. The manager's jaw dropped. David, the concierge, looked like he was about to start applauding. Julian laughed, a brittle, hollow sound. That's impossible. I own this building. I have the paperwork. You have the old paperwork, Lena corrected. You sold the debt on this property to a shell company I control. You defaulted. I foreclosed. It's been public record for 2 weeks. You've been so busy trying to impress your investors that you forgot to check your mail. She pulled out her phone and showed him a digital copy of the deed. The name on the document was clear, Vance Holdings, LLC. The legal owner of the Belle Mer was Lena Vance. Julian Croft stared at the screen, his face draining of all color. He looked like a man who had just been told his entire life was a lie, which, in a way, it was. The confidence that had filled him moments ago evaporated, leaving behind a hollow shell of arrogance. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. The hotel manager, a woman named Denise, stepped forward. Her eyes were wide, but her professional composure held. Mr. Croft, is this true? Has the property been transferred? Julian didn't answer. He just kept staring at the phone in Lena's hand, as if willing the document to disappear. Lena watched him with a calm that surprised even herself. She had imagined this moment 100 times, the confrontation, the revelation, the look of shock on the face of someone who had dismissed her. But now that it was here, it felt less like victory and more like a door finally closing. It's true, Lena said, answering for him. The Belle Mer is now part of the Vance portfolio. I had planned to announce this quietly next week, but Mr. Croft's hospitality has forced my hand. Denise's expression shifted from shock to something like relief. She had worked under Julian for 3 years, enduring his micromanaging, his condescension, his belief that he was the only person in the building who mattered. She had watched him treat staff like furniture and guests like inconveniences. And now, she was watching the universe deliver a verdict. Miss Vance, Denise said carefully, I apologize for the confusion. We were not informed of the change in ownership. You weren't supposed to be, Lena said, but now you are. And I'd like to speak with you privately in about an hour to discuss the future of the hotel's management. I have some ideas. Julian finally found his voice. This is a mistake. A clerical error. I have lawyers. They'll fight this. You can try, Lena said, her tone flat. But the paperwork is clean. The sale was legal. You lost this building the moment you decided to take out a loan you couldn't pay back. You lost it when you thought you could outsmart the market. And you lost it when you decided to treat me like I was nothing. She turned to face him fully, her eyes locking onto his. You don't know who I am, Mr. Croft. You never bothered to ask. You saw a woman in a leather jacket and a laptop bag and decided I was beneath you. That was your mistake. Not the loan, not the debt. That was the moment you lost everything. Julian's hands were shaking now. The adrenaline that had fueled his aggression was gone, replaced by a cold, creeping dread. He looked around the lobby, at the staff who had served him, at the guests who were now whispering behind their hands. He saw the way David the concierge was looking at him, not with fear, but with pity. That was worse than anger. Pity meant he was already defeated. "I want you gone," Lena said, her voice quiet but firm. "Not from the hotel. I want you gone from my sight. Pack your things. Clear out your office. You have 24 hours. "You can't do this," Julian said, but his voice cracked. "I already did," Lena replied. "Security will escort you to your office. Goodbye, Mr. Croft." Two security guards who had been standing at the edges of the lobby stepped forward. They looked at Lena for confirmation, and she nodded. They flanked Julian, not touching him, but making their presence known. He looked at them, then at Lena, then at the floor. For a moment, he seemed like a small, broken man, stripped of the armor of his title and his money. He walked away without another word. The clicking of his expensive shoes on the marble floor echoed through the silent lobby, a funeral march for his ego. When the elevator doors closed behind him, the lobby seemed to exhale. Denise looked at Lena with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. "Miss Vance, I don't know what to say." "Say you'll meet me in my office in an hour," Lena said. "We have work to do." She walked toward the elevator, her heels clicking with a steady rhythm. She caught her reflection in the polished brass of the elevator doors. She saw a woman who had just taken control of a building. But more than that, she saw a woman who had taken control of her own story. She was not the same person who had cleaned offices at night to pay for college. She was not the same person who had been told she would never amount to anything. She was Lena Vance, and she was just getting started. The elevator doors slid open onto the executive floor, and Lena stepped into a hallway that smelled of expensive cologne and fresh flowers. She had only been up here once before, during the initial walkthrough before she bought the debt. Julian's office was at the end of the hall, a corner suite with windows that overlooked the city. She walked past it without stopping, heading instead to a small conference room that would serve as her temporary base. She set her laptop bag on the table and pulled out a chair. Her hands were steady, but her heart was beating faster than she wanted to admit. The confrontation had been a calculated risk. She had known Julian was arrogant, but she hadn't known he would be stupid enough to try to evict the new owner in front of a lobby full of witnesses. She had planned to reveal the ownership change quietly, through legal channels, giving the staff time to adjust. But Julian had forced her hand, and now the news would spread like wildfire through the hotel. Her phone buzzed. A text from her assistant. "Marcus, I saw the lobby feed. You're trending on the hotel's internal chat. Everyone is talking about it. Are you okay?" She typed back, "Am fine. Better than fine. Get ready for a long night." She put the phone down and looked out the window. The city stretched out before her, a maze of steel and glass and ambition. She had come a long way from the small apartment she had shared with her mother, from the nights she had spent cleaning office buildings to pay for community college classes. She had learned the real estate business from the ground up, starting as a receptionist at a small firm, then moving to acquisitions, then striking out on her own. She had bought her first property at 27, a rundown apartment building that everyone told her was a mistake. She had turned it into a profit within 2 years. And now, at 35, she owned a portfolio that included commercial buildings, residential complexes, and a luxury hotel she had just taken from a man who had underestimated her. But the Belle Mer was different. It was personal. It was the hotel where her mother had worked as a housekeeper for 15 years. Lena had spent countless afternoons in the staff break room, doing homework while her mother cleaned rooms. She had seen how the management treated the staff like invisible workers, how they were paid minimum wage with no benefits, how they were expected to smile while being treated like dirt. She had promised herself that if she ever owned a hotel, she would do it differently. Now she had the chance. There was a soft knock on the door. Denise, the hotel manager, stepped in. She looked nervous but determined, a woman who had survived years of working under a difficult boss and was now facing an uncertain future. "Miss Vance," Denise said, "I'm ready to talk whenever you are." Lena gestured to the chair across from her. "Please sit. And call me Lena. We're going to be working together, and I don't believe in formalities that create distance." Denise sat down, her posture stiff. "I have to be honest with you. I don't know what to expect. Mr. Croft was difficult, but I have a lot of loyalty to this hotel and its staff. I want to make sure they're taken care of. That's exactly why I wanted to talk to you first," Lena said. "I've read your file. You've been here for 7 years. You've increased occupancy rates every year. You've implemented staff training programs that reduce turnover. You've done all of this while working for a man who took credit for your work and treated you like a secretary." Denise's eyes widened slightly. She hadn't expected Lena to know so much about her. "I do my homework," Lena said with a small smile. "And here's what I've learned. You're the best hotel manager in this city. You've been held back by bad leadership. I'm offering you the chance to run this hotel the way it should be run, with fair wages, real benefits, and a culture of respect. Are you interested?" Denise didn't hesitate. "Yes, absolutely yes." "Good," Lena said. "Then let's start with the staff. I want a list of every employee, their current salary, their hours, and their tenure. We're going to rewrite the pay structure starting tomorrow, and I want to meet with the housekeeping staff personally. I have a few ideas I want to run by them." Denise's pen hovered over her notepad, her eyes wide with a cautious hope. "You want to meet the housekeeping staff?" "Personally, I started in their shoes," Lena said simply. "I know what it feels like to be invisible. I know what it feels like to clean a room and have the guest look right through you. I want them to know that the person running this hotel understands their work, because she's done it." Denise nodded slowly, a new respect settling into her features. "I can arrange that. Tomorrow morning, before the first shift change. Most of them will be here." "Perfect. And I want you to start drafting a new benefits package. Health insurance, paid sick leave, a childcare stipend. I want the Belle Mer to be the place where hospitality workers want to work, not just a place they pass through." Denise's hand stopped writing. She looked up, her expression unreadable. "Miss Vance." "Lena, that's going to cost a lot of money." Mr. Croft ran a tight ship. He cut every corner he could. "I know," Lena said. "And that's why the hotel is bleeding talent. High turnover costs more than fair wages. I've run the numbers. Investing in staff isn't charity. It's a business strategy. Happy employees stay longer, work harder, and create better guest experiences. That's how you build a reputation that can't be bought." Denise set her pen down. "You're serious about this?" "I've never been more serious about anything in my life." There was a long silence, filled with the hum of the air conditioning and the distant sound of traffic from the street below. Denise looked at Lena, and Lena saw something shift in the manager's eyes. It was the look of someone who had been waiting for a long time for someone to finally say the right words. "They'll start on the list tonight," Denise said quietly, "and I'll have the staff schedule ready for you by 7 in the morning." "Thank you, Denise. I know this is a lot to take in, but I believe you're the right person to help me build something real here." Denise stood, gathering her notes. She paused at the door. Can I ask you a personal question? Go ahead. When you were cleaning offices, did you ever think you'd end up here? Lena considered the question. She thought about the cold, dark offices she had vacuumed at midnight. The sting of cleaning solution on her hands. The way her back ached after a long shift. She thought about the managers who had spoken to her like she was a machine, not a person. She thought about the nights she had cried in her car, wondering if she would ever escape. No, she admitted. I didn't think I'd end up here. I hoped, but I didn't know. I just kept working, kept learning, kept refusing to let anyone tell me I was small. And eventually, the hope turned into a plan. And the plan turned into this. Denise nodded slowly. That's a good answer. She left, closing the door softly behind her. Lena sat alone in the conference room, the city lights beginning to flicker on outside the window. She thought about Julian Croft, probably already on the phone with his lawyers, trying to find a loophole that didn't exist. She thought about the staff, the ones who had been treated poorly for years, who were about to learn that their new boss was someone who had walked in their shoes. And she thought about her mother, the woman who had cleaned rooms at a hotel just like this one, who had never lived to see her daughter own one. The next morning, Lena arrived at the Belle Mer before the sun was fully up. The lobby was quiet, lit by the soft glow of emergency lights and the first pale streaks of dawn filtering through the tall windows. She had slept only a few hours, her mind buzzing with plans and lists and the weight of the day ahead. But she felt alert, focused, ready. She had changed into a simple blazer over a plain blouse, her hair pulled back in a neat bun. She wanted to look professional but approachable, someone the staff could talk to without feeling intimidated. She had learned long ago that respect wasn't earned by the price tag of your clothes, but by the way you treated people. Denise met her in the lobby, holding a tablet and a cup of coffee. She looked like she had been there for hours. Good morning, Lena. The housekeeping staff is gathered in the main banquet hall. I told them it was an important meeting with the new owner. How many? 23 on the early shift. Another 15 will be in by 10. Lena nodded. Let's go. They walked through the quiet hallways, past the kitchens where the scent of fresh bread was beginning to bloom, past the laundry rooms where the hum of industrial machines was already starting. When they reached the banquet hall, Lena paused at the door. She could hear the low murmur of voices inside, a mix of curiosity and anxiety. She took a breath, then pushed the door open. The room was filled with women and a few men, most of them wearing the blue uniforms of the housekeeping staff. They sat in folding chairs, their hands folded in their laps, their eyes fixed on her. Some looked hopeful, others looked wary. A few looked like they had seen this before, a new boss making promises that would be forgotten within a week. Lena walked to the front of the room and turned to face them. She didn't stand behind a podium or a table. She stood in front of them, at the same level, with nothing between them. Good morning, she said. My name is Lena Vance. As of yesterday, I am the owner of this hotel. A few nods. A few exchanged glances. No one spoke. I know you've probably heard a lot of rumors in the last 12 hours. I want to clear them up directly. Julian Croft is gone. He will not be coming back. The hotel is under new management, and that management starts with me. She paused, letting the words settle. I'm not going to stand here and make promises I can't keep, but I will tell you what I believe. I believe that the people who clean this hotel are the most important people in this building. Without you, there is no hotel. Without you, there are no guests. Without you, nothing works. And for too long, this hotel has treated you like you were replaceable. A woman in the front row, Her name tag reading Maria shifted in her seat. Her eyes were fixed on Lena, searching for sincerity. "I'm not going to fix everything overnight," Lena continued. "But I am going to start. Today. Effective immediately, your hourly wage is increasing by $4. You will receive paid sick leave starting next month. And within 60 days, I will have a full benefits package in place, including health insurance and a child care stipend." The room went silent. Then Maria spoke, her voice rough with emotion. "Is this real?" "It's real," Lena said. "And it's just the beginning." A ripple of murmurs spread through the room. Some of the women were looking at each other, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. Maria stood up slowly, her hands trembling. $4 an hour?" she repeated, as if the number didn't make sense. That's more than I've ever made in my life." "It's what you should have been making all along," Lena said. "You work hard. You deserve to be paid like it." Another woman, younger, with her hair pulled back in a tight ponytail, raised her hand. "What about the overtime? Mr. Croft never paid us overtime. He said it wasn't in the budget." "It will be now," Lena said firmly. "If you work overtime, you will be paid overtime. Legally, fairly, and on time. I'm not running a business that cheats its workers to make a profit. That's not how you build something that lasts." The young woman's eyes glistened. She looked down at her hands, and Lena saw her shoulders relax, just slightly, as if a weight she had been carrying for years had finally been lifted. Lena looked around the room, meeting the eyes of as many people as she could. "I know you've been let down before. I know you've heard promises that were broken. I can't undo that. But I can show you, day by day, that I mean what I say. Starting today." She stepped back, giving them space to process. Denise moved to her side, her expression unreadable. "That was well done," Denise murmured. "It's not done yet," Lena replied. "It's just the first step." Over the next hour, Lena went around the room, shaking hands and learning names. She asked about their families, their children, their dreams. She told them about her own mother, who had cleaned hotel rooms for 15 years and never complained. She told them that she knew what it was like to come home with sore feet and aching hands. By the time the meeting ended, the atmosphere in the room had shifted. The wariness was still there, but it was mixed with something else, hope. As the staff filed out, Maria approached Lena. She was an older woman, her face lined with years of hard work. She held out her hand, and Lena took it. "Thank you," Maria said, her voice thick. No one has ever talked to us like that. Like we matter." Lena squeezed her hand. "You do matter, and I'm going to make sure this hotel never forgets it." Maria nodded, a single tear escaping down her cheek. She turned and walked away, her steps a little lighter than before. Lena stood alone in the banquet hall, the morning light now flooding through the windows. She thought about Julian Croft, probably still trying to find a way to undo what had been done. She thought about the challenges ahead, the resistance she would face, the long hours of work. But she also thought about Mariah's tear and the hope in the eyes of the young woman with the ponytail. She had taken the first step, and she was not going to stop. The days that followed were a blur of meetings, paperwork, and late nights. Lena threw herself into the work with a ferocity that surprised even her. She reviewed every department, every expense report, every contract. She found inefficiencies that Julian had ignored, corners he had cut, and opportunities he had missed. She implemented new training programs, streamlined the booking system, and renegotiated supplier contracts. Slowly, Methodically, she began to reshape the Belle Mer into the hotel it was always meant to be. But the most important changes were the ones the guests never saw. The new pay structure, the benefits package, the childcare stipend that allowed single mothers like Maria to work without worrying about who was watching their children. The staff responded with a loyalty that money couldn't buy. Turnover dropped. Morale soared. The housekeepers started taking pride in their work again, not because they were afraid of being fired, but because they felt valued. Word spread through the hospitality industry. Other hotel owners called Lena, curious about her methods. Some were skeptical. Others were openly hostile, accusing her of driving up labor costs for everyone. Lena ignored them. She knew that fair wages weren't a weakness. They were a competitive advantage. Happy employees created happy guests. Happy guests came back, and they told their friends. Within 3 months, the Belle Mer's online ratings had climbed from 3.8 stars to 4.7. The hotel was fully booked for the first time in years. Revenue was up 20%. And Lena was already looking at her next acquisition. She was in her office one evening, reviewing the financials for a potential property across town, when her phone buzzed. An unknown number. She almost ignored it, but something made her pick up. "Miss Vance," a familiar voice said. "Julian Croft." He sounded tired, defeated. "I'm calling to apologize." Lena leaned back in her chair. She said nothing. "I was wrong about you," Julian continued. "I was arrogant. I made assumptions. I treated you like you were nothing, and you proved me wrong. You won. I just wanted you to know that." Lena was quiet for a long moment. She thought about the woman she had been when she first walked into the Belle Mer, the woman who had been dismissed and humiliated. She thought about how far she had come, not just in business, but in herself. "Thank you," she said finally. "I appreciate that." There was a pause. "Is there anything I can do to make it right?" "No," Lena said, "but you can learn from it. That's all any of us can do." She hung up. She sat in the quiet of her office, the city lights twinkling outside the window. She felt a strange sense of peace. The apology didn't change anything. It didn't undo the past. But it closed a door that had been open for too long. She picked up her phone and called her daughter, who was staying with her sister for the weekend. She heard the sound of her child's laughter, and she smiled. She had built something real. And she was just getting started. The Belle Mer became a symbol, not just of luxury, but of dignity. Other properties in Lena's portfolio adopted the same model. She proved that treating workers fairly wasn't just ethical, it was profitable. She was invited to speak at conferences, featured in business magazines, and approached by investors who wanted to back her vision. But she never forgot where she came from. She still walked through the hotel corridors, learning names, listening to concerns, remembering the feeling of being invisible. One evening, a year after that first confrontation in the lobby, she stood on the rooftop of the Belle Mer, looking out at the city. The sky was a deep purple, the first stars beginning to appear. Her daughter, now 7 years old, stood beside her, holding her hand. "Mommy," the little girl said, "did you build all of this?" Lena looked down at her child, then back at the city. She thought about the long nights, the doubt, the people who had told her she would fail. She thought about the housekeepers who now had health insurance, the single mothers who could afford childcare, the staff who walked into work with their heads held high. "No, baby," she said softly. "I didn't build it alone. A lot of people helped. But I did start it. I started it with a promise to myself that I would never let anyone tell me what I was worth." Her daughter squeezed her hand. You're worth a lot, Mommy. Lena smiled. I know. And so are you. Never let anyone tell you different. If this story moved you, hit that like button and subscribe. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that their worth is not defined by the people who overlook them. And leave a comment. What's one thing you've been told you couldn't do that you went on to achieve? We read every single one.